Okay. Okay, we're set. We're recording. We're live on Facebook.
Mhm.
Awesome. So I am Rachel from Nutrition in Bloom, and I am so excited to be welcoming Denise Funfar with me today. Denise and I have known each other about a year, and she has just been an amazing resource for me. I've been working with her. She's been providing me coaching and guidance, and I wanted to share her knowledge with all of you because it has been so helpful for me. So I am first, Denise, I'm going to just tell everybody a little bit about you and we'll go from there, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, so Denise Funfar is an integrative coach, and she's also the organizer of Mom Tribe San Diego, which collaborates with organizations ranging from business accelerators to nonprofits to intuitively guide people, especially women, to create form a place of authenticity, self-worth, and inner joy. Her corporate career spans Europe and the US with a BS in business and an MS in people and change management, emphasizing employee well-being. Denise graduated from UCSD's teacher training and practicums in mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness self-compassion. She's also a graduate of USD's leadership coaching program, as well as various certifications in integrative psychology and Eastern philosophies on wellness. She is fueled by a deep desire for people to experience worthiness, belonging, and joy being fully themselves. You can learn more at her website, denisefunfar.com, and I will link to all of her resources and everything. And Denise, just reading your bio, I am so impressed by everything that you've done. I didn't know a lot of that stuff about you. So I would love, before I share about my experience with you, I'd love if you could just share a little bit about just kind of what you do and how you really found this to be your calling.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you for that kind introduction. It's a lot to sit here and hear all of this. Yeah. So my traditional training, my graduate school studies are within the College of Business. So I have studied as much psychology and sociology about change that you can study really and still be within the College of Business, both on an individual and on a group system level. And then parallel to that, for about 20 years, I have been studying meditation and energy work and Eastern philosophies of healing. And so, what I do is really I integrate these two worlds. I work between scientific and experiential knowing. Um, and really, how this became my work is a lot of both professional curiosity, but also personal need. I think I've been very driven as someone who has had challenges with self worth and anxiety and depression to figure out what's going on here. And I'm very happy to say that these things are very helpful for both success and achievement, my more traditional studies, and also for well being. And so that's really where I work now is merging those things. I think you deserve to reach your goals, and I think everybody deserves to know that they are loved and that they belong. And very often, when we're not getting the results that we want, it is these kind of basic needs and this conditioning that we've developed around not meeting those needs that's kind of holding us back, even if that's not where we always want to look or where we start.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you for sharing that. And I love how I think what really drew me to you was how you do combine like these two different worlds in such a kind way, just it's really cool. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, and Denise is going to guide us through learning a little bit about self-compassion and kind of this practice that I was brand new to me when I learned about it.
Mhm.
And just to share my story, and I know Denise knows this story, but with the organization she founded, Mom Tribe San Diego, they had a local event a little over a year ago in San Diego. And I had been wanting to go to one of their events. I never was able to, and saw this event, signed up last minute. And I thought I was going to an event on self-care. You hear the word self-care a lot. And I was like, okay, cool. This sounds interesting. I do need self-care. I want to learn more about it. And when I got there, I was just blown away by learning about this thing called self-kindness and self-compassion. And I almost was like brought to tears in terms of like, oh, this is a thing and people practice this. And this story that I've been telling myself my entire life I don't have to be doing things this way. I don't have to be hurting in this way. And there are ways to make changes. So I think that's what I took away from that event. And I know you're going to go over some of the exercises here. And then Denise has been my coach for about a year, and kind of helping me work through a lot of these specific areas. So it's been really just eye-opening to really just understand how we can be more compassionate to ourselves and kinder to ourselves, and how there's a whole world of like research behind it and how to do it. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think I can relate to your story so well too. And so many of us can, because I think um, so often, especially as women, we can be so kind to other people and so hard on ourselves. And
Hmm.
we want to reach our goals and we want to achieve, and we think that the only way to do that is to really keep that whip, to continue to be hard on ourselves, to make sure that we really do what we want to do. And it was liberating for me as well to learn that there is a whole other way, and that you can train it, and that the results are often the same or better, and they come with well-being. And so um, yeah, it's really great to hear you share your story. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I asked you on here because I felt like a lot of parents could probably relate to some of the things that I had been going through, and especially when it came to feeding. Um, I'd been thinking about having you on for a while, and I from a lot of parents, I was hearing this like guilt for their child's picky eating, or what did I do wrong, or why did this happen? What did I do? And I coach parents on taking yourself out of it because you did nothing wrong, but it just was like this moment of, I wonder if we can kind of shift that, and using your guidance to make some of these positive changes to be more compassionate to ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, well, I would love to talk about it. I mean, it's my favorite thing. So thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, are there any specific things that you feel like you would especially want to talk about as far as what people are struggling with?
So I think from what I've heard, one of the biggest things is, as I mentioned, just kind of um, that guilt, around the parent guilt around their child's eating. And I know it's so much bigger than eating. Like there's the guilt around so many things, but what I hear is, it's my fault that they're picky. I did something wrong. I didn't give them enough food. I didn't start solids with baby led weaning, and that's why they're picky. Just all of this kind of guilt almost around it. And the other thing I see a lot of, and I'm sure a lot of parents watching this can relate, is just around mealtime and feeling this defeat around mealtime, or it's not going how they want, or their child's not behaving how they want. And just this like, what am I doing wrong? And this probably um, comes from some of this self talk that we're doing. So those are kind of the two biggest areas that I see. And again, I'm sure that it's like playing out in other areas too. So yeah,
Yeah.
take it away.
Oh, fun. Yeah. Well, the biggest thing, talking about guilt. So, guilt can be healthy, it can spur us into positive action. But very often, what happens is it turns into shame. And so, guilt we can think of as I did something bad. Shame is I am bad.
Hmm.
And so, very often, if we're trying to change our behavior from a place of I am bad, that is a very hard place to start from. It's a hard place to start from, even just in your physiology of your body, because very often then you're already in a place where your nervous system is activated and you don't have access to really the best parts of yourself that have to do with creativity and decision making. And so, in any situation where you're feeling guilt, we can ask ourselves, okay, is this because I need to take a different action? For sure. But then the first thing that we want to do is really take care of ourselves,
Hmm.
so that we can come at it from our place of having access to our values, having access to our goals. And so I want to actually give an example. I was looking at different research that I could share with you guys to kind of demonstrate what mindful self-compassion is. And I came across this talk by Dr. McGonigal, and she's a researcher at Stanford. And it has to do with the what the hell effect. And so it has to do with donuts and chocolate. So I thought it was appropriate for this group since you guys are probably pretty nutrition and health conscious. And the what the hell effect, it means that, hey, I ate one slice of pizza. I feel bad about myself. I might as well eat the whole thing. What the hell? And so she's referencing in this talk a study that they did at Duke University. And what they do is they have health conscious university women come in and they eat a donut. And they have them eat the donut pretty quickly with a glass of water. Like they want them to feel a little bit overindulgent. And then in the second part of the study, they have chocolate sampling. Mm-hmm. And so they say, you can eat as many chocolates as you need to sample. And some of the women, before they eat the chocolates, they're given a message of self-forgiveness. And so someone comes in and they say to these women, they say, we noticed that some people feel bad after they've eaten a donut. And so this is mindfulness. So they noticed that they're not feeling well, that they're struggling, that this might be hard for them. And then they say, I want to remind you that everybody overindulges sometimes. And so this is common humanity. It's like, you're not alone. You're not the only one that overeats sometimes or that eats unhealthy food. There's nothing wrong with eating donuts, right? Mm-hmm. And then lastly, they offer them some kindness. And so they say, I just want to encourage you not to be too hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. And so this is Dr. Kristin Neff's work on mindful self-compassion. So in this study, half the women get this message of self-forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So Rachel, how much less chocolate do you think the women ate that got the message on self-forgiveness and self-compassion?
I don't know, maybe like 50%.
Yeah, they ate less than half the chocolate.
Okay.
And this is just someone coming in and offering them some compassion.
Yeah.
And I mean, so significantly less chocolate. One piece of chocolate is about 3 grams. The women who didn't get the message of self-compassion and who were typically quite hard on themselves for overdoing it, they ate 78 grams of chocolate.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I know. So there's this fallacy very often that we can kind of beat ourselves up to get the results that we want, and it's just usually not the case because it becomes overwhelmingly hard to admit even sometimes that that we're doing something that we want to change because we're so hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. So the number one thing that I wanted to have us all ask ourselves today and to kind of start investigating is, how do I respond to myself when I'm struggling? How do I respond to myself when I'm having a hard time? And before we do this next exercise, what I just really want to let everybody know is that it's nothing wrong with you if you are being hard on yourself. I don't have time to go into all of the specifics, but negativity bias, I'm sure we've all heard of it. So as humans, we tend to focus on what's not working so that we can survive. This is kind of how we're wired. Yeah. And so this is a very common thing. And then because of conditioning, the role that we play in society, all these different things, it can get reinforced. Yeah. So I know, Rachel, you've done this exercise before. This is a mindful self-compassion exercise. Again, by Dr. Kristin Neff and Dr. Chris Germer. But I'm going to ask you all to play along. And so if you want to just close your eyes maybe and visualize, or if you're more of someone who likes to write things down, you could do that too. So maybe taking a deep breath. All right, and bringing to mind now a situation when a good friend was struggling. So don't pick a family member or a child or a spouse that feels a little too close. We're just playing with getting a sense of how we might interact with someone who is struggling. So not a family member, sorry, a close friend is having a hard time. Maybe they encountered a misfortune, they made a mistake in some way. How would you relate to that? So think of a friend that's coming to you because they're having a hard time. What would you say to them? How would you relate to them? Maybe think of the tone that you would use. Maybe even your body language. I know it can take a little time to think of an example. So know that you can go back and play with this again. There's no right way. And then letting that kind of fade, really making the screen blank again. And we're going to think of a new example. So this time you're having a hard time. So think of one time or several times. How do you tend to respond to yourself when you made a mistake or the external environment didn't work out the way that you were hoping? You're struggling. What do you tend to say to yourself? What tone do you use with yourself? Maybe there's body language here too in the posture that you're assuming. And remembering that this is just awareness building. So there's no right or wrong here. We're just collecting information. And now noticing any differences or patterns between how you treat yourself and how you treat others. You might also notice the level of permanency of the challenge. So when you're dealing with your own problems, maybe they feel like, oh, they're never going to go away. I'm always going to be this way. Whereas when you're thinking of a friend's challenge, maybe, this will change. You'll do better next time. So, what a lot of people notice in this is that, and Rachel, you can come back if you want. What a lot of people notice is that they're harder on themselves than they are other people.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And there, maybe you didn't notice that. Maybe you noticed something else, and that's fine too. And that's the challenge of this kind of setting. You don't get to explore that as much, but this can give a little bit of awareness. Okay, how do I tend to treat myself? And anytime we're trying to change a behavior, we have to know what the current behavior is first.
Mhm.
And so this is great. We got some information here. This is a great starting point, regardless of what you discovered. So what do we do with this? How do we go about offering ourselves greater compassion and kindness and acceptance? So I thought instead of talking at you again, we could do another example. So you could work with a real life challenge that you're having, and maybe it's related to feeding. So if you want to, you can bring that example into this. Um, so once again, if you want to go ahead and close your eyes, you can be our real live guinea pig.
Mhm.
And this is a self-compassion break. And I'm happy to send, I have one that's specifically for parents that you can actually listen to while you're in the moment. So if you know that feeding is a big trigger, that you tend to show up a little overwhelmed, you don't want to react or to your children, you want to have the ability to respond. Maybe you could even bring that with you one time and see if that's helpful. But let's give it a try. So if you think of a situation that's hard for you right now, something that's causing you some stress, and in all of this work that we do together, we want to encourage ourselves to be slow learners, because we're building a new muscle. It's like you're at the gym. You might have the 2-pound weight right now. You're not ready for the 15-pound weight, right? So let yourself pick an example that's not overwhelming. Pick something that's moderate. It's enough of a challenge that you can feel it in your body, but it's not so much that it overwhelms you. Maybe it's a difficult relationship. Maybe someone disrespected you at work. Maybe your kids are driving you a little crazy at dinner time. So imagine that you're there again. And some of us are very visual. And if you are, you can imagine yourself in the scene. Others aren't, and that's okay too. Starting to notice where in your body you're experiencing some of this discomfort. And this is one of those things that you can train too. A lot of this work, what we do is we bring these kind of looping thoughts, this brain that gets kind of preoccupied, and really the challenging thoughts just go like this. So we start bringing them into the body where we can work with them. And if that's foreign, that's okay. Just seeing, do I feel a little tightness in my chest perhaps? Do I notice that I'm furrowing my brow because I feel very angry, or that my shoulders are tight? Some butterflies in the stomach, perhaps. Just starting to make contact with the discomfort that you feel in the body when you're thinking about and visualizing this difficult situation. And then recognizing, this is a moment of challenge. This is a moment of suffering. And this is that mindfulness that we talked about. You're recognizing that this is challenging. And you're not over identifying with it, and you're not trying to push it away. You're actually letting it be what it is. And you're acknowledging the fact that this is hard. Ouch, this hurts. And this is a very, very first step, and a very important step in this work, is acknowledging I'm having a hard time. If you're at the dinner table and you're having a hard time, your kids already know it. So it's a good idea to admit it to yourself so you can work with it. And next, say to yourself, I'm not alone in this. Everybody suffers sometimes. All parents have challenges with feeding their kids. And if it's not feeding their kids, they're having challenges with bedtime. And if it's not bedtime, their kid doesn't want to play nice on the playground. I mean, everybody has challenges, right? It's the common humanity. And I want to throw in here that most of these beliefs that we have about ourselves, we think they're so unique and special to us, but really a lot of research has been done that we all have the same ones. So challenges are usually shared by millions. Our limiting beliefs about how awful we are usually shared by millions of other people. They're not so special. You're human. And now in this final piece, we're offering ourselves some kindness. And research suggests that two ways that can be really good to do this are with soothing touch. So placing your hand on your heart, perhaps. Some people feel very comforted putting their hands on their face. This is the hardest thing to get people to do in workshops, because people find this a little bit embarrassing. So it's okay if this feels foreign, but you're at home in front of your computer, so you can just play with it, giving yourself a little hug. And as silly as this seems, we're all mammals, and you know how mammals are comforted by their parents. Soothing touch. So your brain doesn't know that is not your loving caregiver. So it calms your brain down. So we're revisiting, I'm digressing a little bit here. We're revisiting this example that you're working with, this challenging example, and we're offering ourselves some kindness. So We have a soothing touch, perhaps, and the other way is to offer some loving words. May I be kind to myself. May I know that I'm doing the best that I can. May I begin to be kind to myself. May I know that I'm trying to show up for myself. So maybe you don't start with, I am loved. Maybe you start with, may I know that I'm doing my best. And again, the tone matters. So we're mammals. So we're often soothed by our caregivers in this kind of soothing tone and kind affirmations. And this is the work of Paul Gilbert out of the UK, who's researched this. And if you're having a hard time finding something to say to yourself, maybe again revisit, what would you say to a good friend that was having this kind of a challenge? And then see if you can say it to yourself. Yeah. And then checking in and seeing if anything has changed in the body. Maybe noticing if you feel a little bit more relaxed in the body or maybe in the mind. And maybe you don't, and that's okay too. Sometimes what we notice is even more when we actually slow down to do this because we don't usually allow those feelings. And also to know that if there's a little bit of emotion present, then that's totally normal, also. When we kind of relax the stress a little, often the tears can come out, or if we shine love onto something that where there isn't a lot of love or a lot of use to offering ourselves, that can also bring some emotion.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's mostly what I wanted to share with you all, and to just encourage you to play with really noticing, maybe over the next week,
Yeah.
noticing when I'm upset, how do I treat myself? So starting to kind of build that awareness muscle of, well, how do I treat myself today? Because the inner dialogue that we have in our heads is so automatic.
Yeah.
It's nothing that we consider. We just think it's normal. And we don't realize that there are other options for programming. So much of what we do is just on autopilot. So if we start to notice, how do I treat myself? And then if we do happen to catch ourselves in the noticing, what would I say to a good friend right now?
Mhm.
And remembering that soothing touch and those kind words, those are two tools that we can use. So if there's anything to bring away from this, it's just noticing if I'm suffering, and then what would I say to a good friend? And something I just want to point out too is that it counts even if you don't notice in the moment and you do it after the fact.
Mhm.
So the brain is really cool, and the brain doesn't always know if it's really happening or if I'm just imagining that it's happening. So one way to actually start retraining our behavior is after the fact to go back and visualize, how would I have wanted this to go? So I'm trying to provide dinner for everyone. I made this dinner. My son doesn't want to eat it and it's super hard. And I lose my temper and I overreact. And then I'm hard on myself and I beat myself up because I want to be a better mom than this. Okay. And then before I go to bed, I acknowledge that I'm having a hard time. Not that it's okay to yell at my kids necessarily. We don't have to say that the behavior is okay, but I acknowledge that I'm hurting.
Mhm.
I offer myself some kindness then and there. And then I visualize, perhaps, well, what would it have looked like if it had gone the way I wanted it to? How would I have behaved then? And just in doing that, it's more likely that you'll behave that way next time. So there are all these little things that we can do. And willpower alone is very challenging. If you start, I mean, this is like a rabbit hole, as you know, but and I mean, food, what you put into your body makes a difference in how you behave and how likely your brain is able to respond or react. There's so many factors that don't just have to do with our intentions, but
Mhm.
the physiology of our body and the different conditioning that has been trained in us for years. And one of those things is how we relate to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can get a little long winded. I want to make sure that I wrap it up. But thank you so much for letting me talk about those things.
Yeah, that was so great. And I love how you touched at the end that even if you don't notice it in the moment, come like thinking about it at the end of the day or just being kind whenever you remember, whenever you can do it, like it's like not beating yourself up for not realizing that you're, not doing it in the moment, if that makes sense. Just that what I love so much about this, and I mean, this is, of course, a huge work in progress for me. I think that number one, it's the awareness, but if you don't have the awareness in the moment, like that's okay. Be kind to yourself about not having it. I think you gave us some really great tools and tips that we could hopefully try out at home and some really great exercises. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And and this tendency, I mean, you said you're a work in progress or whatever. I'm a work in progress. The intention is not to be perfect at this either. The intention is that you have an approach, a way of doing things that you can bring with you everywhere. So you are always deserving of kindness from yourself. And it's not just because you want to increase your well being. I mean, well being is great, and hopefully we all want to feel well, but it is also tied to the results that you get. So if we're in a state of overwhelm and we're thinking that that's exactly when we're going to be able to develop new skills and habits, I mean, that's not usually possible. We have to get ourselves back from overwhelm to safety before we can actually develop new skills very often.
Mhm.
Um, and so we're trying to go faster, that looping mind I was talking about, when it's already triggered and it's already going,
Yeah.
the first thing that we often need to do that we aren't taught is actually calm our system down
Mm,
so that we can choose something else.
mhm.
And it can absolutely be done after the fact when we're reflecting on it. When I'm working with someone in a coaching situation, the first thing we do is start a log, usually a self-observation log, so we can start noticing, because we don't know until we know. It's all just running. Our programs are all just running, and we all just think that what we do and how we perceive the world is normal unless we challenge it a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize it's like we don't until, again, like until I learned about this, like you don't even realize that it's happening. It's just that autopilot piece. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Um, thank you for
Oh,
getting us start. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say one thing. I realized I was throwing in so much research and so many other little things during that exercise that it wasn't really a true experience of a self compassion break. I don't know what the best way is, but if people want to send me an email, or it's the same as my name. So it's Denise Funfar at gmail.com. If you send me an email, I'm happy to share. I have practices. I have self compassion breaks, and then I have different, very short practices like an overwhelm reset and things that I'm happy to share, a few different exercises. So you could actually really try it out on your own time.
Awesome.
So whoever's interested, I'm happy to share that.
Yeah, and I will just say that I know I've listened to a number of your exercises and meditations, and I find them to be very, I mean, you have a very calming presence about you, I think, and I'm sure everyone realizes that after listening to this, but just great ways to, especially some of the shorter ones when you only have a few minutes to do that. So yes, and on that note, please, I know you gave us just like a little snippet of what's possible, but please share with us how we can find you if people have questions, yeah, and where they can connect with you. And
You're so nice. Thank you. I really appreciate all your kindness. Yeah. So I am getting ready to teach an 8-week mindful self-compassion class right now, and that one's already full. But I would love anybody who's interested in and being notified the next time I teach it. Yeah, again, just email me. And then I also do have a coaching business, and I work with both CEOs and entrepreneurs. And then I also do more private clients. And I have about probably 2 or 3 slots available right now. And then I also have a wait list. So if anyone is interested in that, I am definitely interested. And I always do 30-minute discovery calls too. So if anyone is just interested in learning more about this, I would love to connect, and I'm happy to share more. The coaching that I do, because I have a business background, sometimes that's where we start, and very often we do still end up, whether it's life coaching or more business coaching, it's very similar topics that we end up covering a lot of the time. And my coaching really meets you where you're at, and so I do work in an integrative sense. Meaning that for me, it's the mind, it's the body, and it's also whatever you deem this something else, universe or spirit or whatever. I have done quite a bit of training in energy work. So if that's something you're open for, a lot of the times that also comes in, as you know. it
Yeah,
gets it gets fun. Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. But it huh?
Just a really cool experience. So
Oh,
yeah.
you're sweet. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. My email is denisefunfar@gmail.com, and my website is the same. So I
And
appreciate this so much.
yeah, I will link to your website and your email address so then people can get in touch with you there as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Denise, for coming on and chatting with us. Yeah, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Bye.
Bye.